The Last of Us is not only one of the best games to come out in recent memory, but also what is certainly going to be one of the most iconic mainstays in the gaming culture, with its evocative story, its powerful ending, and very emotionally driven characters that are able to flesh out this zombie apocalypse background that has been played to death up until this point, particularly in video games, and make it brand new again and make it a riveting experience that deserves to be played again and again. And it's really frustrating that ever since that fucking game came out, every time something does a grittier interpretation of what came before, it's automatically labeled as, oh, it's so-and-so Last of Us, or it's like The Last of Us only with so-and-so. And I'm getting a little irritated with it. One of the most recent victims to that is Logan. As soon as that very first trailer for Logan dropped some time ago, before the release of the film, everybody was like, The Last of Us Logan, or The Last of Logan. That was actually my favorite one. That's actually pretty clever. And there's no denying the similarities. As you can see the images, mainly that one when they're in the car. There's even an exact shot lifted from the Last of Us game where they're both driving in a car. Ellie's in the passenger seat, Joe's in the driver's seat, just like Logan and X-23, or Laura Kinney, I think was her name. But X-23, they're in the car, almost in the exact same position, almost looking at the exact same things and looking the exact same way, with Logan and his beard and his shirt and all his blood, everything. Everybody's drawing the very strong similarities. And even though people are saying that this is very evocative of the comic book Old Man Logan, people just can't fight the feeling to compare it to The Last of Us. And Logan's not the only one that's doing this too. As soon as that first God of War trailer for the revamped God of War that we're getting on the PS4, probably in the next 2 or 3 years or so, the first thing that came to mind to people were, oh, it's like the God of War version of The Last of Us, because of the way the gameplay looked and the much more grounded story, where not only are you dealing with Kratos' son, but Kratos himself is lesser of a over-the-top version of the character, because in the original trilogy he's like, I want to kill everything, and now here he's much more somber, he's much more toned down, he's still very aggressive and intimidating, but he's taking that new dark and gritty approach. So whenever somebody goes dark and gritty from here on out, and especially they add that guitar, just like Logan did with the Johnny Cash song, as soon as a guitar and that dark ambiance is approached to some kind of property, people just can't fight the feeling to mention The Last of Us. And prior to The Last of Us's release back in 2013, there were so many other properties that were doing this kind of thing before. And it's funny because one of those things was mentioned along with The Last of Us after the Logan trailer was dropped, and that was the movie Children of Men. Children of Men has a similar thing going for it, where it's like a road trip film amongst an apocalyptic wasteland, but it's a different type of nature to the story, because it deals with pregnancies and stuff like that. I don't want to get into it because I don't want to spoil anything for the movie, because it's a really good film. Check it out. But we shouldn't just stick to one thing, because it really is kind of putting a damper on that game. Because as much as we love that game, whenever it gets brought up in the discussion, it's going to draw a little bit of stigma to not only the game, but also to the person that's bringing it up, because they're like, oh my god, you can't go through a certain conversation without mentioning The Last of Us. And it's only going to keep rolling more and more now that we're getting part 2 in 2019. I went to bet 2019. People are saying, oh my god, 2017. No, that game is not coming out this year. It's not coming out 2018 even. Probably 2018. That's like the that's the earliest it could probably come out. And even then, I'm like, no, 2019. That's like, that game's not coming out 2019. But when it does, we are going to be facing some new stigma where people are saying, oh my god, it's one of the most overrated games. And that I won't comment on, because everybody's got their own opinion. In fact, as I grow older and as I start to look at different things, from movies to games, TV shows, even books, from comics to novels, whatever, the terms overrated and underrated start to take a brand new meaning, where eventually you start to look at it as, well, there's no such thing as overrating something or underrating something. You just simply have a different opinion over this one thing. It just doesn't do it for you, or you like it so much, or better than the normal consensus of people. So that's how it is. In my opinion, is that The Last of Us is one of the greatest games within the past generation, but not one of the best ever made just yet. I feel like it can rise in the ranks of being labeled as one of the greatest ever made, but right now I'll just say that within the last 10 years or so, Last of Us is definitely one of the best ever made on the current gen console PS4, and including PS3, since those two kind of overlap with the remastered or whatever. But that's no excuse for people to kind of bring this negative type of reaction to the Last of Us model, which is this implication that anything that takes this approach of having a smaller character, mainly a younger female character that is being guided by an older, much more older, middle-aged male character, is automatically considered as a Last of Us clone or Last of Us ripoff or being influenced by the Last of Us. No, they just have this set story with this focus that centers around these two characters trying to get from point A to point B. There's no denying that there are some similarities, some comparisons, but we can't automatically just bring up The Last of Us in every single conversation. In fact, I'm going to make it my resolution for the year to try to mention The Last of Us as little as possible when it comes to certain properties, whether it be movies, games, whatever, that kind of take on this kind of template and make it their own. But I'm not going to be referencing The Last of Us every single time because The Last of Us model could kind of be a detriment to conversations and bring stigma to the original core game that it all came out of, The Last of Us. And I think down to it, we should really look at things for how they are, which is to be to just look at a good story and be like, okay, that's what I liked about the story, that's what I didn't like about the story, and that's what I'm going to be doing going into Logan. I'm not going to be thinking about The Last of Us. I'm not going to be going, oh, The Last of Us did it better or whatever. In fact, I'm going to be placing a bet right now that when I do my review for Logan next month, I will not be mentioning The Last of Us whatsoever. I'm going to be talking about the story, the characters, how this kind of transitions into the newest phase for the X-Men universe, knowing that Hugh Jackman is no longer with us in that universe. I mean, he's still alive, but he's no longer Logan/Wolverine. That's going to be truly, truly sad. I'm getting my Kleenex ready for that fucking movie. But more importantly, how it stacks up on its own without ever referencing The Last of Us. Because we need to realize that The Last of Us is its own thing, especially now being a franchise with Part 2 coming, and shouldn't be the automatic source for comparison. Because I know everybody's got free speech, fine, do it, but just don't bring the negative kind of stigma over to the original game, especially haters, because the internet is just it's that blue light that lures flies and moths to it that they put in restaurants. The Last of Us is actually one of those, mainly because it's a PlayStation exclusive, so it just draws ire from so many people. And one of the basic foundations for that ire is the comparisons to the game whenever a property such as God of War or a comic book movie like Logan does certain things like where they kind of ground the story, ground the atmosphere to kind of make it very somber and dreary and dark, and automatically go to The Last of Us. We need to stop that. So those are my thoughts on that little argument. Please let me know in the comments what you guys think of this Last of Us model that so many properties are taking. Do you think it's the right step? Do you think that they should just cut it out? Or do you think it's something that, like myself have just said, they could do, but just don't bring that negative reaction to The Last of Us, because The Last of Us is just a game. Just look at it as a way for them to kind of interpret their own story. Please let me know your feedback in the comments below, like and share this video, and of course subscribe for more opinion pieces such as this coming very, very soon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and of course do not forget to follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at DarkSpiderDavid. Take care guys, see you later.